The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Entire star systems fell into silence, not from fear, but from awe. For centuries, alien empires had measured power in fleets, weapons, and influence, but humanity had always been underestimated. They were considered clever, yes, but fragile. A species too young, too small, too chaotic to ever leave a mark among the stars. Until now, across the void, a lone human ship cut through asteroid fields at impossible speeds, its hull bristling with technology that no one outside Earth had ever imagined. On board, the crew moved with quiet precision. They were not just soldiers or scientists, they were a symbol of an entire species that had learned to survive, adapt, and thrive under the harshest conditions imaginable. Every mission, every experiment, every risk had built toward this moment. Every alien who had mocked humanity would soon realize the depth of their mistake. The leaders of distant empires watched from crystal towers and command satellites, their eyes widening as reports arrived faster than any communication system could verify. Humanity had done the impossible, unified against threats that had shattered alliances for millennia, engineered weapons that bent physics itself, and mastered strategies that made seasoned warlords rethink everything they believed about intelligence and resilience. And yet, humanity's true plan remained a mystery. Not a single enemy knew what would come next, and that uncertainty was the deadliest weapon of all. In the control room of the flagship, tension crackled like static electricity. No one spoke unnecessarily. The silence was heavy with anticipation. Outside the reinforced windows, stars streaked past as if time itself were rushing to witness the outcome. Every member of the crew understood the weight of their actions, not just for themselves, but for every human colony scattered across hundreds of worlds. The stakes were unimaginable. One wrong move could mean annihilation. One bold move could rewrite the balance of the entire galaxy. And then, the first signal arrived, a single, untraceable transmission that pulsed across human networks and alien communications alike. It was not a threat, not a warning, not even a declaration. It was a statement of intent. Humanity had repaid its debt, though no one yet knew who it owed or why the cost had been so high. Every empire, every fleet, every political council felt it in the quiet that followed, a sense of insignificance, a fleeting glimpse of power they had never witnessed before. As the human ship accelerated toward an unknown destination, a shadow moved across the galactic map, a ripple that promised upheaval, confrontation, and revelation. Something was coming, something that would change the understanding of war, diplomacy, and survival itself. And the galaxy could only wait, breathless, as humanity prepared to show what it truly meant to be a species that refused to be underestimated. Somewhere in that vast silence, the first choices had already been made, but the consequences. The galaxy would not see them coming, and neither would the humans themselves. The stage was set, the players were ready, and the first move in this game of survival was about to begin, but no one could predict who would survive, or what price humanity would pay for its ultimate reckoning. The human crew aboard the flagship moved with a rhythm born of countless drills, endless simulations, and years of preparation that no outsider could have imagined. Each face told a story of survival, scarred, determined, brilliant, and unyielding. They weren't the largest crew the galaxy had ever seen, but they were the most precise, the most unpredictable, and the most dangerous in ways that no alien race had accounted for. Every human aboard had been tested beyond normal limits, trained not just in combat, but in improvisation, strategy, and understanding the psychology of opponents who underestimated them at every turn. Before this moment, humanity had survived countless brushes with extinction. Wars had torn through their colonies, alien predators had tested their ingenuity, and the vacuum of space had claimed many lives. But every loss had been a lesson, every failure a spark for innovation. The humans who now stood ready were the culmination of centuries of adaptation. They carried memories of planets lost, of betrayals, of near-impossible survival missions. It had forged them into a species that refused to retreat, a species capable of bending circumstances to their will, and a species the galaxy had learned to misjudge at its peril. The flagship's captain, a figure of calm authority, surveyed the bridge with eyes that missed nothing. She had been chosen not just for skill, but for the rare ability to make impossible decisions under extreme pressure. Around her, crew members monitored streams of incoming intelligence, analyzing threats that would have paralyzed most. Alien movements, unexplained anomalies, and secret communications flashed across holographic displays. Every signal suggested that the galaxy was stirring, that empires were whispering to one another, and that alliances were beginning to shift in response to humanity's unprecedented boldness. Yet even within their own ranks, uncertainty lingered. The humans had mastered technology that could disrupt entire fleets, but the true cost of deploying such power remained unknown. Rumors of ancient alien forces, entities so old and powerful they existed beyond the understanding of even the most advanced civilizations, hovered at the edges of intelligence reports. Could humanity truly face what lay beyond the known? Or had their ambition drawn the attention of powers far older and far less forgiving than any empire? Stories of human ingenuity were spreading, though no one outside Earth could fully grasp the scope. The humans had built ships that could traverse impossible distances, weapons that could alter matter itself, and defenses that could render conventional fleets helpless. Yet, for all this power, the crew remained tethered to their humanity, compassion, curiosity, and relentless resolve that no technology could replicate. That was their greatest strength, and perhaps their greatest vulnerability. As the flagship navigated a field of uncharted systems, the crew felt the subtle tension of history pressing down on them. Every move could trigger reactions they couldn't predict. Every alliance, every confrontation, every choice was a gamble with stakes far higher than any individual life. And somewhere out there, across the stars, a shadow watched a presence that neither fleets nor sensors could detect. It seemed patient, silent, and impossible to comprehend. The galaxy waited. Humanity waited. And the questions that had been building for centuries, what it meant to survive, to adapt, to wield true power, were about to collide with answers no one could have anticipated. Across the galaxy, signals rippled like whispers through the void. Alien empires scrambled to interpret humanity's sudden displays of power, but their assumptions were failing. Commanders who had relied on intimidation and numerical superiority now faced a species that refused to play by conventional rules. Every fleet sent a probe, every attempt to negotiate, and every strike against human colonies had been met with strategies that were both unpredictable and devastatingly efficient. It was not sheer force alone that unnerved Vet, was intelligence, creativity, and a willingness to take risks that no alien race could calculate. On the flagship, tension ran deep among the crew. Not all were soldiers. Some were engineers, diplomats, and scientists who had never seen war unfold on such a scale. Each of them had personal stakes, memories of lost colonies, friends who had disappeared in ambushes, or families who had been caught in the crossfire. Their personal struggles layered over the collective pressure of humanity's survival, giving them a sharp edge but also a fragile thread holding them together. Arguments flared briefly, only to dissolve when the gravity of their mission demanded focus. Every decision carried consequences far beyond their understanding, and yet they pressed forward, driven by something primal, the refusal to be underestimated. Meanwhile, distant empires began to fracture internally. Politicians argued over how to respond to a species that defied centuries of galactic norms. Some advocated immediate aggression, fearing that hesitation would allow humans to consolidate power. Others urged caution, insisting that the humans' rapid rise hinted at forces that could threaten entire civilizations, forces they did not yet comprehend. Spies and informants reported anomalous fleets disappearing, communication networks collapsing, and strange bursts of energy that could not be traced to any known source. Fear, more than hatred, drove these councils, and fear is a force capable of creating mistakes no strategist can predict. On board the human flagship, the crew monitored these reactions with a mix of calculation and curiosity. The captain understood that victory, if it came, would not be in brute force alone. It would be in manipulation, in understanding the psychology of civilizations that had long assumed superiority. The engineers whispered about experimental systems that could bend time like fields around ships. Diplomats analyzed intercepted signals, seeking cracks in alliances that could be exploited. Each subplot, the rising tension among alien empires, the whispered doubts within the crew, and the unknown lurking in uncharted space intertwined to form a web of uncertainty. And somewhere in the dark expanse beyond sensors, a presence watched. Not fleet, not government, not civilization, something older, deliberate, and calculating. It observed humanity with an interest that felt almost personal, measuring the species' resolve, adaptability, and capacity for unpredictability. No one aboard the flagship could detect it, but subtle fluctuations in energy readings hinted at its existence. Its motives were unknown, its power was incomprehensible, and as humans prepared their next move, it remained a silent variable, shaping the galaxy's unfolding conflict in ways no one could anticipate. Every day brought new choices, new threats, and new mysteries. Humanity had claimed the first victories, but the true conflict, the one that would decide not just who survived, but who defined the rules of the galaxy, was only beginning. Every empire, every fleet, and every human mind was now part of a game that could not be paused, and the tension between the known and the unimaginable stretched across the stars, waiting for the moment when the next move would spark a chain reaction that no one could stop. The galaxy was no longer a silent witness, it had begun to react, and every reaction carried a ripple of tension. Alien empires, once confident in their dominance, now found themselves second-guessing decades of strategy. Reports from frontier scouts described human vessels appearing in unexpected sectors, moving faster than any known propulsion technology allowed. Entire fleets that had prepared to blockade human colonies found themselves outmaneuvered, stranded in dangerous sectors, or simply untraceable. The uncertainty gnawed at the minds of commanders who had built their reputations on precision, but against humanity, precision alone seemed powerless. On board the human flagship, the atmosphere was equally charged. Crew members huddled over displays that mapped enemy positions, energy fluctuations, and anomalous readings from deep space. Each of them understood the stakes, yet each harbored private fears. Some worried that their advanced technology might attract attention from powers beyond comprehension. Others wrestled with the ethical weight of their actions. How many civilizations could be destabilized? How many lives altered? All in the pursuit of survival. And beneath it all, a quiet determination thrummed. Humanity would not falter, even if the galaxy itself seemed determined to challenge them. Meanwhile, the political tensions in distant empires reached a boiling point. Internal factions debated whether to confront humanity directly or to attempt subterfuge, exploiting weaknesses in the fledgling human alliances. Spies moved through shadowed corridors, and whispers of betrayal drifted across star systems. Some saw opportunity in chaos, plotting coups that could reshape entire governments. Others acted out of desperation, attempting to strike preemptively at humans whose actions they could not predict. Every empire was now fractured, their strategies conflicting, their fear making them vulnerable in ways they would never admit. In uncharted space, another layer of tension grew. An intelligence no one had anticipated, ancient and patient, moved subtly through the void. Not bound by fleets or empires, it observed patterns, learned behaviors, and adjusted its focus. Sensors aboard the flagship occasionally picked up faint, inexplicable distortions, energy spikes, gravitational anomalies, signals that seemed to defy logic. The crew speculated, debated, and planned for every known threat, yet none could account for this shadow moving just beyond perception. It was a reminder that even in victory, the unknown loomed a silent force capable of turning triumph into catastrophe. Subplots intertwined in unexpected ways. Diplomats on Earth and human colonies worked to coordinate disparate factions, while engineers pushed experimental technology to its limits. Scouts explored new territories, risking ambushes and hostile encounters, mapping routes that could determine the outcome of the next engagement. Each subplot highlighted not just the scale of the conflict, but the human element, the courage, ingenuity, and resilience that had brought them this far. Every human aboard every ship was a thread in a complex tapestry of strategy, survival, and ambition. The galaxy waited, holding its breath. Humanity had struck first and claimed victories, but the larger struggle had only begun. Each empire, each fleet, each unknown entity was moving in response, calculating, reacting, testing limits. The tension was electric, stretching across light years, and no one could say who would survive the next encounter. Humanity's reach had expanded, its power was undeniable, yet the future remained uncertain. Every decision could ignite a chain reaction that no one, not even humans, could control. And as the flagship moved through the darkness, every star ahead seemed to whisper one unanswerable question. What would humanity do next? The void outside the flagship seemed to pulse with tension, each star a silent witness to the mounting storm. Human senses picked up signals that twisted physics, readings that shouldn't exist. And yet there they were, proof that the galaxy was responding to their presence in ways no one could fully understand. Every movement, every decision was amplified by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The crew felt it in their bones. This was no longer about survival or retaliation. It was about proving humanity's place in a galaxy that had long underestimated them. Inside the command room, conversations were clipped, urgent, and layered with unspoken fear. Engineers monitored unstable energy surges from experimental propulsion systems, knowing that one miscalculation could obliterate the ship. Strategists pored over fragmented intelligence from alien fleets, trying to anticipate moves that were deliberately unpredictable. Diplomats aboard the vessel weighed intercepted communications, noting cracks in alliances that could either save them or doom them. Every mind was working at maximum capacity, yet the sense of impending confrontation was inescapable. Humanity was poised at a threshold, and the universe was holding its breath. Across alien empires, fear had transformed into panic. Commanders ordered fleets into positions they had not fully tested. Signals between worlds became frantic, chaotic, and uncoordinated. Some fleets moved too fast, risking collisions or traps. Others hesitated, uncertain whether hesitation would buy time or allow humanity to strike first. Entire empires were unmoored by the humans' unpredictability. Rumors spread of unknown forces lurking just beyond perception, forces that might render all strategy meaningless. The galaxy's great powers had been challenged, and the realization sent shockwaves that no political council could contain. Within the human ranks, tensions ran just as high. Not every crew member was certain of the outcome. Some doubted whether their experimental technologies could withstand the combined might of the galaxy's fleets. Others feared that the shadow they sensed in uncharted space might strike at the worst possible moment. Yet despite the fear, determination burned brighter. Every human aboard carried the weight of their species' survival, a mixture of pride, defiance, and relentless ingenuity. They were ready to gamble everything, to test the limits of their abilities against unknown threats, and to face the consequences of choices that could not be undone. Uncharted sectors became chessboards of unseen conflict. Fleets maneuvered across voids that defied mapping. Energy signatures flared in sudden bursts, and alien spies reported phenomena they could not explain. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, the ancient intelligence moved deliberately, observing, calculating, waiting for a single misstep. Every anomaly fed its awareness, every human maneuver sharpened its understanding. It was patient, knowing that time itself was an ally, and humanity, bold and relentless, was playing right into the edges of its vision. The flagship accelerated into a sector where known physics barely held. The crew could feel the tension like static electricity. Every system on the ship was under stress, every sensor flaring with warnings, every signal screaming possibility and peril. Across the galaxy, alien fleets prepared for the confrontation they could not predict. Empires teetered on the edge of panic, and an ancient presence watched silently from the dark. Humanity was about to make the move that could change everything, yet the true consequences of that move remained unseen. Every star, every fleet, every decision was converging toward a moment that would define the future, but what awaited at the climax was a question no one could yet answer, not even those aboard the human flagship. Just as the flagship entered the uncharted sector, sensors picked up a pattern that made every crew member freeze. It wasn't a fleet, it wasn't a weapon they had encountered anomalies before, but this was different. The readings formed shapes that seemed almost deliberate, artificial in a way that suggested intelligence far beyond anything humanity had faced. Energy pulses flickered across their displays, forming coordinates, signals, even what looked like messages but in a language the crew could not decipher. The sense of being observed deepened. Someone or something was not just aware of them. It was interacting, testing, perhaps even taunting. The captain's hands tightened around the console. Every crew member felt it. The stakes had just risen. For months they had prepared for alien empires, for battles, for sabotage, but this was unknown. It was a force that seemed to anticipate their every move, a presence that could bend the rules of engagement without ever showing itself. Engineers debated whether the ship's experimental systems could cope with the strange energy surges, while strategists argued over whether to retreat or advance. Every choice felt like a gamble on a board they could barely see. Meanwhile, transmissions from distant human colonies revealed another layer of tension. Some colonies reported sudden failures in communication and power, systems shutting down with no discernible cause. Others experienced flares of energy that seemed to pulse with intent, almost as if the galaxy itself were reacting to humanity's presence. Panic flared in some settlements, confusion in others. The humans who had once been underestimated were now forced to contend not only with alien fleets but with mysterious forces that threatened their own networks and infrastructure. Every signal, every anomaly, added weight to the growing sense that the conflict was no longer one-dimensional. It was multiplying, layering, and becoming more dangerous by the hour. Across alien empires, the news of these anomalies caused instant fractures. Fleets paused mid-movement, unsure whether to continue offensives or flee. Political councils erupted in argument. Some leaders saw the strange phenomena as a potential weapon, others as a warning, still others as a sign that humanity had awakened forces even they could not control. Ambassadors whispered of ancient beings, of technologies that predated known civilizations, of intelligence that existed beyond the galaxy itself. Fear, uncertainty, and miscalculation began to rule, turning long-standing alliances into fragile, trembling coalitions. Back aboard the flagship, the crew faced their own mounting crises. Sensors were now alerting to multiple threats simultaneously: alien fleets on unpredictable courses, energy anomalies that threatened structural integrity, and signals from an intelligence that had already proven it could manipulate space itself. Even the most seasoned humans felt the weight of vulnerability pressing in, the realization that no amount of preparation could account for everything they were encountering. Yet, amid the fear, determination surged. Every human aboard understood that survival required action, and that their ingenuity, strategic, technical, and human, was their only advantage. As the flagship moved closer to the source of the anomalies, the crew glimpsed something impossible: massive structures drifting in the void, neither ship nor planet, yet radiating energy patterns that suggested design, purpose, and power. The galaxy had always underestimated humanity, but the humans themselves were about to discover that the universe held secrets far more dangerous and far more intelligent than any fleet they had faced. The stage was set. The tension was unbearable, and the next move would push everyone, human and alien alike, toward consequences no one could yet imagine. The flagship pierced the heart of the uncharted sector, and the source of the anomalies revealed itself in a way that left the crew breathless. Massive structures, immense and impossibly complex, floated silently in the void. They were not ships, not colonies, but constructs of a scale and intelligence that defied comprehension. Energy pulsed through them like a heartbeat, synchronizing with the readings that had haunted the human crew for days. The realization hit them simultaneously. They were facing an intelligence older and more calculating than any civilization they had encountered, a force that had been observing the rise of humanity from the shadows. Alien fleets converged on the sector, expecting to confront the humans in a conventional battle. They were wrong. The flagship moved with precision, weaving through the alien formations, its experimental systems channeling energy into shields and propulsion that made it untouchable. Humanity's ingenuity, honed over centuries of survival, now became the deciding factor. Fleets that had relied on numbers, on overwhelming firepower, found themselves outmaneuvered, outfought, and ultimately paralyzed. Every alien commander realized, too late, that their assumptions about humans had been catastrophically flawed. The captain issued a final command, and the human fleet activated a sequence that altered the very energy fields around the anomalies. The massive constructs responded almost instantly, their energy harmonizing with the human systems. A brilliant wave of light expanded outward, neutralizing alien weapons and destabilizing hostile fleets. The galaxy had watched humans rise, but now they saw what true ingenuity could achieve: survival, strategy, and courage combined in a force no one could ignore. Humanity had repaid its debt not through destruction alone, but through the demonstration of intelligence, adaptability, and resolve. Yet the climax did not end with victory alone. As alien fleets retreated and human systems stabilized, the crew detected a subtle, almost imperceptible pulse emanating from the constructs. Unlike before, it was not chaotic or testing, it was a message. Symbols formed in the energy fields, patterns that hinted at an invitation or a warning, a communication from an intelligence that had existed long before the galaxy had civilizations to measure. The captain and her crew realized that while they had survived, outmaneuvered empires, and proved their might, the universe itself had presented a new challenge, one far larger, far older, and far more mysterious than any conflict with empires or fleets. Back on human colonies, messages flooded in. Systems were returning to normal. Alien fleets were withdrawing, and humanity's presence was now recognized and feared. The galaxy's hierarchy had shifted, empires fractured, and alliances trembled. Humans had achieved the impossible, not just defending themselves but asserting their place among the stars. And yet, a subtle pulse from the constructs reminded them that this was only the beginning. The victory came with an unspoken understanding. Power alone would never be enough to survive what the universe held beyond known space. As the flagship moved forward, the final readings revealed an even deeper layer: hidden patterns within the energy of the constructs, suggesting a presence even older and more enigmatic. Humanity had won the battle, had outmaneuvered the galaxy, and had proven its ingenuity. But the universe was far vaster, far stranger, and far more intelligent than anyone could have anticipated. The pulse quickened, a silent promise that while humanity had survived its first reckoning, the true challenge, the one that would test the limits of courage, strategy, and adaptability, was only just beginning. The flagship drifted through the quieted sector. The immense constructs now stable, their pulses rhythmic but no longer threatening. The immediate danger had passed, alien fleets had withdrawn to reconsider their strategies, and human colonies began to rebuild and communicate without interference. The galaxy, which had once dismissed humanity as weak and inconsequential, now regarded them with a mixture of caution, awe, and grudging respect. Humans had repaid a debt not measured in conquest, but in intelligence, resilience, and an unshakable will to survive against impossible odds. On board the flagship, the crew finally allowed themselves a moment to breathe. Engineers checked systems, ensuring the ship could continue its mission safely. Diplomats sent transmissions to human colonies and friendly alien factions, sharing what they had learned and attempting to stabilize the tenuous alliances that had begun to form. The captain walked the bridge, her gaze on the glowing anomalies in the distance. The constructs were no longer an immediate threat, but they were a reminder that humanity had only scratched the surface of what lay beyond known space. They had survived their first reckoning, but the universe was far larger, more mysterious, and far more intelligent than anyone had imagined. Reports came in from colonies scattered across the stars. Humans had outmaneuvered hostile fleets, restored failing systems, and maintained cohesion under conditions that had broken stronger civilizations. Private triumphs were recorded: engineers who improvised to save lives, scouts who charted new hyperspace routes, and medics who held communities together through fear and chaos. These subplots, once small and individual, now wove together to tell a larger story. Humanity had endured because of its ingenuity, courage, and its refusal to give up even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Each human act, each decision, contributed to the survival of the species and the transformation of the galaxy's perception of them. The alien empires, meanwhile, were left to reconsider everything. Leaders and strategists would never forget how a small, underestimated species had turned the tide, neutralized fleets with precision, and adapted to challenges no one else could foresee. Alliances shifted, treaties were rewritten, and the fragile balance of power in the galaxy began to tilt toward a recognition that humanity could not be ignored. The lesson was clear. Intelligence, adaptability, and determination could outmatch even overwhelming force. Yet even as humans celebrated, the subtle pulse of the ancient constructs continued in the distance, a quiet reminder that their journey was far from over. The galaxy's mysteries were vast, and for every challenge humans had overcome, another awaited. The constructs had not been destroyed. They had been understood, stabilized, and respected, but they hinted at knowledge, forces, and intelligence that humanity had yet to encounter. The universe had acknowledged humanity's arrival, but it was also inviting them to take the next step into a realm of discovery, danger, and potential the likes of which no civilization had ever known. As the flagship sailed onward, the crew reflected on what had been achieved. Humanity had survived where others would have failed. They had proven that courage, ingenuity, and adaptability could overcome prejudice, fear, and impossible odds. And though the galaxy remained vast and full of unknowns, humans had learned a fundamental truth: the greatest strength lies not in weapons or fleets, but in the mind, the will, and the relentless drive to rise above any challenge. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of danger and opportunity alike, and humanity moved forward not as a species to be underestimated, but as one the galaxy would never forget.